Some people call me Mr. Wonderful. Other people call me William Douglas Street Jr.
Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I am doing a movie review and a movie kind of expose on the movie Chameleon Street, right? Now, if you want to check out this movie, I'm going to play the trailer. It's on Tubi. I also like to say there's a couple of films that I worked on, which are called Why Wait and After the Wait, which are on Tubi also. And this movie, Chameleon Street, was called, they called it Too Black for Hollywood. But at the same time, they say that it was hard to market, right? And I'm going to get into that aspect because there are many films like it now. It's a common, almost a genre of this sort of character you get from the title. But at the same time, it got any major distribution. And it also, it did get a remake clause where Warner Brothers wanted to remake it, but at the same time, they decided not to release it. So you would get some buzz from it being distributed. And then next, when you do the remake, kind of like what's that thing? The Mariachi and Desperado, you have the movie, which was released, right? And then next thing you know, you had the remake, right? And then led for filmmakers led Robert Rodriguez to become such a big filmmaker and have his own studio. And before Chameleon Street, you had Steven Soderbergh, who won they both won the jury prize the year before, I guess it'd be 98. Steven Soderbergh won the jury prize for Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And I guess is that Sundance? They had the jury prize, and Soderbergh was there, and he voted for it to win, and it won, but it didn't get any distribution, right? So I'm going to play the trailer, and then we're going to get into a bunch of other things. Ready, set.
Some people call me Mr. Wonderful. Other people call me William Douglas Street Jr. Born in a log cabin in the backwoods of Kentucky, young Douglas soon elevated himself from field hand to tiger, from tiger to reporter, and from reporter to doctor, from doctor to co-ed, from co-ed to attorney, from attorney to congressman. When I meet somebody, I know within the first 2 minutes who they want me to be. I need some money.
Make some money.
I mean, I could sit here and make you think you're a genius for correctly analyzing this complex, exotic, notorious Negro.
You know that the white man runs this world?
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Your credentials are just too amazing to believe.
What would you concoct such a licentious, low-down lie?
I wanted to get the money.
Open your mouth.
This is all just a vacation to you, isn't it?
Prison, a vacation. People ask me if I regret what happened. Sure, I regret it, but you can take my word for it. It's an unforgettable experience. I think, therefore I scan. I know not what I am. I am Chameleon Street.
And Wendell B. Harris, who plays it's a biopic on William Douglas Street. He was a conman. This is not the actual conman. This is the actor and writer-director. And he made this film about a conman, right? We've seen a movie about a conman. But, and I understand that they're saying that it was a hard time. Well, actually, no. It actually wasn't marketed to the black audience. Even though it was during the boom, you had Spike Lee, you had Menace to Society, you had all these other black films coming out. And they said, we don't know where this goes in that sector. Now you can say and possibly agree, but it's not really in actuality, Hollywood. I don't agree with that. This is definitely our film should have been released, and it's definitely something that could go in any of the things I was watching while I was at school during this time. A friend of mine actually was one of his favorite films, and he's the one who showed it to me, right? And I don't know my reaction the first time. I can't remember. I remember watching it and then watching it recently on Tubi. I laughed a whole lot. So, and this, the thing is, this isn't actually a Hollywood film, but it's definitely a movie that kind of, I don't know how many people looked at it and it pushed the film of the periods forward, but I can say it kind of pushed the films forward because it is definitely an arts film, on level of having storytelling wise, what would you say, a strong storyteller and tone and actual direction is some elements that you see in student films, but it's definitely in that art house type of film, right? So at the same time, they couldn't get a release. They did get a 4K restoration, and now it's on Blu-ray, and you can also, it's been on VHS, but you can get it on Blu-ray, and you can watch it on Tubi, if wherever Tubi's at. Now, in my mind, when watching it again, I was kind of like watching, I was like, this is like the con man genre, right? There's always a con man genre. And I'm going to get to some other effects of Hollywood movie making that has, Hollywood has kind of taken on a couple of traits from this movie. First off, we're going to get to the con man and then remaking of this movie in many different ways and aspects. Not all total remakes of this same story. Just saying this couldn't work, but these others could, right? So we had to go to what would be the granddaddy of the con men, right? And of course, this would be Catch Me If You Can. And you can see this on YouTube. You can see it for free. This is in my opinion, the movie that kind of set Leo on the path that he needed to really get on. I'm not sure if he won any awards, but we have this of a con man, smart as a whip, but just misguided for reasons we don't know, right? If we look at the trailer, but he's living this lavish lifestyle. He's Leonardo DiCaprio, and all this things to the good for why you should see it. Of course, we have to go in that it's a white lead, a white leading man that's a heartthrob. So it's like the perfect setup, but it's like almost chapter and verse the same thing. The only difference is that Leo is huggable and lovable.
I'll be choosing 8 young ladies to be a part of Pan Am's future stewardess program.
So huggable and lovable.
He is what the audience wants to see. The audience wants to see your con man that's just a misdirected genius. There's someone that's been a couple of things in his life went left that led him to become this con man, where the Chameleon Street doesn't have any of that. He is a ne'er-do-well and didn't even get into the actual topic of his intelligence because it doesn't come up until he does the con. So his only interest in the Chameleon Street is the con, and it plays out without any of the niceties of that to say that, something terrible happened in his childhood that led him to do X, Y, Z, right? So if we go to Catch Me If You Can, you have him doing all this great stuff and all the stuff. If you put his mind to it, he can be all these characters. He had living 4 or 5 different lifestyles, but only partially because he's actually swindling the big guys, and they want to tell us that he didn't swindle any of the little guys, right? So we have this thing that people want to see, and girls want to be with him, and guys want to be like that. The guy that walks in and is able to trick someone out of their things in the nicest way possible. And he's based on a real person.
What he has had to tell us over the years. Do you want to hear the actual story of Frank Abagnale? Well, here's a hint. He's a lying liar who lies about everything.
And I played enough of this to say he's even selling you right here. The truth of the matter is that he's a car thief. His parents did break up, but he was already stealing cars and bouncing checks early on in his life. He was already a criminal very much earlier, but right now we're getting sold on this type of thing. And at the same time, this was sold to Steven Spielberg, and he took it even to the nth level, adding to the mystique of this character, right? So this is the hook that they're giving you. And when you see a crook, there's something, especially, I don't want to get into the black and white part of it, But people like having the crook that's the smart guy. Since I went to saying not get into the black and white of it, let's get into the person who is kind of the big connect to all of this.
I can convince anyone of anything. You see, there's a science to getting people to trust you.
Now, when they wanted to remake, the first person they wanted to remake, well, one of the people they wanted to remake this movie with is Will Smith, right? So Will Smith was the first person they thought of. I think there was some Wesley Snipes possibly, but they were thinking about Will Smith, and Will Smith loved the idea. He loved the idea that he saw the movie, he wanted to do it, but he knew what they were going to do. They knew that they were going to make him into a likable person, right? And so so even though he didn't do it, he also did 6 Degrees of Separation. He did Focus, which is about a con man. You have Hitch, who's kind of on the edge, who's kind of what's the name? He's kind of a ladies' man, using his tricks and trades to get women. And then, I'm sorry to say, The Pursuit of Happiness. And then, but he utilizes the scene that you've seen. If you saw in the trailer, there's a scene where Douglas Street fixes the Rubik's Cube. He can't get a job, but the guy has a Rubik's Cube, and he utilizes that, even though his credentials are kind of hard to believe. He uses a Rubik's Cube to sell himself to the employer, and the employer takes his phony credentials because he's like, wow, he just appealed to his intelligence.
Let me be perfectly honest with you. Your credentials are just too amazing to believe. Why don't I explain how the transitional internship works? Then we can give you a little tour of the hospital. You can meet some of the other residents and see what you think.
Hey, yo.
There.
And that's what these movies are doing. They're appealing to your intelligence, saying, hey, this guy went through something. He had some struggles, but in actuality, he's a nice guy. He just took a couple of wrong turns. So it's not just a black and white thing. Hollywood really wanted Will Smith to play this part. And they buried Chameleon Street, but Will Smith used it in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for a scene where he's not accepted when he goes to a college, but at the same time he fixes a Rubik's Cube. And they're like, hey, you might be smart enough, but it's not in a swindling scene. It's in a scene where it's a positive, right? So when we get to, Focus, which is him in a high-profile criminal doing a big con jobs, but at the same time, at the core of it is a love story. A good portion of it, there's excess, but there's also this love story and the student-teacher thing between him and the female lead. And I don't know why everything always escapes me while I about Margot Robbie. So it's one of those things where, and even The Pursuit of Happiness. The Pursuit of Happiness taking the con man and saying, hey, here's your ordinary person. That's what Hollywood is selling you. And The Pursuit of Happiness is saying, here's this guy who's down on his luck and he has to do anything to get to the next stage. And he's on the edge. We've got this kid on the street. It's based on a real story. But Will Smith threw in the Rubik's Cube. And in the car ride, he does the Rubik's Cube. And then the guy says, hey, come by tomorrow. Because the person appealed to the other person's intelligence, saying that he is smart. It's just like the same thing that they keep kind of selling you. But they sell you on this, and you buy it hook, line, and sinker.
You went to Harvard Law.
I'm an exception.
Find me another one.
Give each guy a hard time before you send them back. Give me a wink if they say something clever.
Okay. Excuse me, you are 5 minutes late. Is there a reason why I should let you in?
Look, I'm just trying to ditch the cops, okay? I don't really care if you let me in or not.
Mike Ross.
Harvey Specter, nice to meet you. Unfortunately, we only hire from Harvard, and you haven't even gone to any law school.
What if I told you that I consume knowledge like no one you've ever met and I've actually passed the bar?
I'd say you're full of crap.
Read me something.
Civil liability associated with agency is based on
The reasonable inference of agency on behalf of the plaintiff and the nature of the damages themselves.
How did you know that?
I like to read. Once I read something, I understand it. And once I understand it, I never forget it.
So here we go. Appealing to your intelligence. We all think of ourselves as the Mike Ross. But at the same time, reading and understanding is two different things, right? But he is doing both. He not only consumes it, he's able to be a lawyer. There's some obvious nuances in the story, but this is another story about a lovable con man who had a couple of things that went left, and you just keep. I mean, Suits has gotten a second life. Because I mean, Suits is really good too, but at the same time, you're buying into the criminal, the brains, and at the same time, the brain power to utilize. And that's what the difference between Chameleon Street is like. None of the brain power is used to something that could help him into the next stage, since he's able to do a bunch of things. So, man, I got a bunch of these movies to go through because there's so many, and I know people like to look at like gangster films and say, oh, another gangster film, oh, another black hood film, another this, and it's just like, yo, we're just gonna appeal you to your intelligence, and you're just gonna keep buying it with these half a criminal things, right? With these last couple of films, I'm not even talking about the con man. Well, actually, he is a con man. Was Andy Dufresne? He is the most upstanding criminal out there. He's trying to enlighten. He's helpful. This, that, and the other, but the whole thing is a con, so nobody knows he's trying to break out. We don't know if he did the crime or not. They don't really play into that because they don't want us to catch to that. But that's the thing. A lot of the critics were tough on Chameleon Street talking about, the fact of being likable or caring, and this person, this, that, and the other. He's doing this to the common person, and this, that, and the other. Shawshank is it's not stilted. I mean, it's obviously a well-done thing, but you're buying into the fact that, hey, they're portraying him as close to being a good guy that got pushed to the wrong situation. And then we understand when he breaks out, when he could put all that energy into his defense if he actually wasn't the criminal that he is. And it's something that we can look at ourselves, that we would go into jail and we would be the smart guy, and we would survive the fights and this, that, and the other, and we would make a friend that inside and outside of prison. So it's one of the things, because it's kind of appealing to your child. And at the same time, I think when I first heard about this movie before it became big, when it was in the theaters, a teacher of mine, he really couldn't stand it. And he came in and said that when I saw it, I was kind of like, I guess he was an impressionable teacher of me, but I kind of agreed. I don't think he didn't tell me any reasons why I couldn't get with it, but literally when I would go to college and, not dorms, but college apartment buildings or houses that had a lot of college students, they would have Shawshank Redemption cards. So I'm the lone one on this one, but at the same time, it is something that really appeals to people's intelligence to say, everyone sees themselves as this. I've had some struggles. If these XYZ things didn't happen, I would be on the next stage. And then the last thing of the playing to your intelligence, which I'm going to show you, I have to do it to my favorite movie of all time, The Usual Suspects, right? Because we are set up. It's a noir narration con story about Verbal Kent, right? You think it's about Gabriel Byrne's character or Agent Couillon, but it's really kind of the Verbal Kent movie because he's the one that's left and he's getting interrogated, right? But he doesn't seem like that because he's lesser. But the thing of it is him kind of outsmarting the cops in his bigger role. That's the thing. Whereas Bryan Singer and Chris McCarthy didn't make any. They let you know that Verbal Kent was a killer. They let you know he's a killer. But then, because he gets insulted, and because in the end it shows that he was smarter than the people he went up against, it's something that really appeals to the audience. So one of the things, not to say that it has to be, but The Usual Suspect, these guys are criminals. And they didn't try to show you their past or anything like that. They're criminals that pulled in a lineup that they don't have to stay in a lineup. They go in a lineup, they don't get picked out. They're saying that lineups are just BS. They just drag people in there. And, some of the people that might have done it, some of them, these lineups, have nobody that did anything. We need to do a lineup. Let's gather. That's the whole point of The Usual Suspects. Let's gather them. So these guys are such hardened criminals that we want to get them on anything. And their decisions to pay them back, cops back, are, just some violent stuff that they would do. So it's a definite thing where it appeals to your intelligence, but it's also, these guys are criminals. There's no getting around it, right? So I just want to say that this is the whole point in going into these other movies, and that is that Hollywood, in the time that the Chameleon Street was out, and there's been The Hustler, there's been, The Color of Money, The Sting. There's a ton of movies that are con movies that came out, but as we moved on, I guess a great train robbery, escape from Alcatraz, or even the Rock or something like that. They show people that are, I guess, escape from Alcatraz, show someone that's fairly intelligent, where I think the guy didn't actually do it himself, he just planned it. In the escape from Alcatraz, I think Clint Eastwood gets out. So let's go back to the other thing before we get to our last two things. So again, just to remind you that the movie is Chameleon Street, and the actor, this doesn't have that kind of BS. This is just a dark portrayal of a person who we don't need to know his motivation outside of money. I mean, they say it in the trailer. You don't get much of the motivation, and that's the thing that audiences, Hollywood knows, looking at it saying, we know how to make this movie. That's why we want to do the remake. We can make him a huggable and lovable character like Frank Abernathy, who, his the whole Catch Me If You Can is totally false. He's been a criminal for all of his life, and he sold a book and was able to make money, get a part in Catch Me If You Can, but he was a total crook. And his parents broke up, yes, but they weren't out of his life, and to run away, he stole a car. So he didn't just steal from Pan Am, he stole from small people, from regular folk, everyday folk he stole from. So the story of his romances weren't there either. So this thing is, you have this movie which cuts all the BS. And I understand in your movie, they're saying, well, why am I watching it if he's just going to be that? Well, this is the point. You're not supposed to. Why? I guess that's why I had these other movies. I'm sorry. I'm going to some. That's where the Tinder Swindler comes in. The Tinder Swindler is the same as your Frank Abernathy's, your Ocean's 11. Like, these guys will still not only steal from the banks, they will steal from your wallet. They will get an edge on you no matter what. And this is the thing that you're missing out on when we're looking at the con man, that ones we want to hang out with, Leonardo DiCaprio, is that you can't do that with these kinds of criminals. They will take everything from you. And I wish I remember the other story. Those guys that get women to go in bunkers and feel like they were set up by, they're part of the CIA or something like that, and the police can't help them, right? So that's the angle of the con man. That's why I wanted to go through these other stories and say, this is an interesting why you should check out this movie, because there's no pretense. There's no trying to sell you on the character. Even when he does the right thing, things don't always work out for him, which is kind of like real life, whereas he gets accosted by a racist and he rightfully handles business and thinks something, happens to him in there. So, and that's how real life can be, right? The other thing I wanted to get into is, as I said earlier when I started this, is that some of the things that are done in the movie are techniques that are utilized a lot today, right? Now, you had many different writers that wrote dialogue that were interesting, that did narration that was interesting. But one of the things that Chameleon Street has is what I would kind of call dictionary dialogue. And dictionary dialogue is like kind of taking almost a word and its description and using it as if it's dialogue, right? And you see in the beginning of Pulp Fiction, there's like a definition of pulp and the name and the definition of pulp. And Quentin Tarantino in his films constantly has actors kind of explaining to you almost like a Wikipedia, or to be current, a ChatGPT description of something. And that would be the lines of the dialogue. It wouldn't be like, well, I've heard, that's not how it works. It would try to, slip the meaning of the monologue or the exposition in a way that was a little more natural, that would have a little bit of elements of, how you would really talk about something, rather than giving you the full meaning. And going to Kill Bill, you have the Black Mamba explaining to you the Black.
I'd like to introduce my friend, the Black Mamba.
Black Mamba?
This is Bud. Before I picked that little fella up, I looked him up on the internet. Fascinating creature, the Black Mamba. Listen to this. In Africa, the saying goes, in the bush, an elephant can kill you, a leopard can kill you, and a black mamba can kill you. But only with the mamba, and this has been true in Africa since the dawn of time, is death sure. Hence its handle, Death Incarnate. Pretty cool, huh? Its neurotoxic venom is one of nature's most effective poisons, acting on the nervous system, causing paralysis. The venom of a black mamba can kill a human being in 4 hours, if, say, bitten on the ankle or the thumb. However, a bite to the face or torso can bring death from paralysis within 20 minutes. Now you should listen to this, because this concerns you.
This was him. When I saw this in the movies, I flipped out. I think I was like, how did I get into another Kill Bill? Like, how did this happen? Because she's literally reading the definition. Like, she has it written out. Like, the whole point of the monologue is to memorize it. Now, what's the name going? The next step is saying, I'm the Black Mamba. I'm going to read you the definition that I wrote out, which are on this notepad. And I was just like flipping out in my head. And it was really surprising to see kind of that kind of dialogue in Chameleon Street. Not the what's the name? Not him reading off it, but having definitions of stuff we've never heard before and its explanation of it. And that's something that, is also a witty type of thing to be able to explain stuff that's not in the commonplace of what we talk about. So, not to say that he created it, but it's just like seeing all these elements in one film. And the same with, this is another thing where in real life, the character, well, let's get out of this, get back to, and then we will close this video out. The last thing that I saw in this movie, which I don't remember, the con man Douglas Street, he becomes a doctor and he actually performs hysterectomies in real life. They say he did 30 of them. Now, in this movie, they have him perform one, right? So we have him performing one, and we as the audience, or me as the audience, I'm losing it. I'm like, what is going on in this film? This is based on a true story. This portion can't be real. And it takes you through every gut-wrenching part of this thing. Like, you just sit through it, and it's just like, it just makes you squirm, because she's like saying, how can this happen? This is not real. This is a movie. And then when you find out, it's really just like, oh my God, what is going on? And I think that's what, and only have a reference of Quentin Tarantino, because you have in Reservoir Dogs, what's the name? The actor gets shot, and he gets brought back to the safe house, and he's bleeding on the floor. And Harvey Keitel saying, you're not a doctor, you don't know. You can last, as an explanation, he explains how long a human body lasts before it dies. So you go through the losing of blood, this, that, and the other, but you don't die right away. So there's still a chance to save you. So it's an explanation, as I said. And then we also have a gut-wrenching, because you're watching a 90-minute or 2-hour film, and he's just sitting there bleeding, and you're just like, this cannot be real. Like, this cannot be real, right? And the same with the, I think, and you can see it more in the, actually you can see almost some of the, not the same type of dialogue, but kind of these mundane dialogue scenes that, even though in the Chameleon Street, they have a scene like two people in the car just talking about stuff that the content of what they're talking about isn't directly related to the plot. The hook of the end, he does the right storytelling. Like Quentin Tarantino says, wait, these guys are not talking about anything. I can do stories where they just don't talk about anything, right? Or they talk about what they're doing, but I'm going to elongate it and that sort of thing. So in Pulp Fiction, you kind of have the talking of the two crooks in the what's that thing? In the diner, you have obviously Jules and was it Vincent Vega? They are in there. They're talking about their nonsense, that sort of thing. So it just had some similarities there, but the squirming as you go through scenes where you're just like, oh my God, this girl died or overdosed, or she's overdosing. How long can she sit dead? And like you go to this in the same with this character and this thing, he's so relaxed through the whole thing while he's doing these crimes. So, but if you look at Pulp Fiction, there's a bunch of things where you're like, what is going on here? Like, why are they're taking too long to save this girl who's OD'd, Uma Thurman's character who's OD'd. He's worried about what Marcellus Wallace is going to do to him, right? But we still see her basically dead. So in our audience, it said, is this going to work? Does this make any sense? Is it real? And we're saying, well, it has to be real, else they wouldn't portray it because I could go home and look it up. So you have these moments. Or the other thing is where Butch fakes it, wins the money and leaves. Then he goes back to the hotel with his girl and he's just sitting there. He's literally just sitting there sleeping, oversleeping. And it's just like, what is going on? So it's a different type of filmmaking where I think time, I was wondering, I think in looking at Quentin Tarantino playing with time, but we see this, we see Wendell, you see in Chameleon Street, them playing with time. They do set up that this guy, well, I don't know, just get into the story, but they play with the idea of time, and I always looked at it as a Tarantino thing, but you kind of see it early here. I'm not saying he created it, but there's a lot of storytelling elements that are here that you should check out, because you'll be sitting in the thing and be like, what the hell is going on? Can't do this, can't. It's just insane. So I just want to give a nod. I'm giving a nod to it. A friend of mine showed it to me years ago. He was doing kind of a fundraiser for his second film, which didn't go anywhere, but it looked like way more intelligent than anything I'd ever seen in my life. So I was like, I did support it. It was a thing where you could decide to keep your support with it, which I did. That's one of the early things that I crowdfunded, but regretfully he wasn't able to make the movie. And he also in the school movie that I liked. But anyway, yeah, a movie you should check out. It's on Tubi, and Tubi is a place where you constantly kick the filmmakers in the shins, saying that there are bad films on it, but we have this one here that Steven Soderbergh stand behind, and look at the British Film Institute gave it a nod, New York Times, the New Yorker, Rolling Stone. Should have a Steven Soderbergh quote here, but yeah, it's definitely something you should check out. But at the same time, Hollywood looked at it and said, we know how to make this right. We know how it would work for your audience. And all we have to do, put one of our people that we want in there as a lovable person, and we got it. Spinner Rack is out.
I mean, I could sit here and make you think you're a genius for correctly analyzing this complex, exotic, notorious Negro.
I don't want to hear it, man. There's too much going on for me to give a damn about what you think is smart.